Aussie Athlete.
Today's running tip is a story of an experience that I had about what I consider to be the worst blisters ever. This was, how many years ago? This was probably about 7 years ago, probably 2007 maybe. And I was at working at IBM and in the corporate world, and came across barefoot running, and I was reading about it. I hadn't quite started ultra running yet at that point, and I just got really super excited about barefoot running. I think I was reading a website called barefooters.org, and I was so inspired. Like, I read that in the morning, and then at lunchtime I went out for a run, totally barefoot on roads in the heat of summer in Canberra, Australia. And the roads were hot, and I'd be dancing across the road to the other side to find some shade, and then run. And then I ran about a mile and a half, and then got to a trail, and then I was running along some like crushed quartz, I think it was, trail. It was really finely crushed, but it was still a harsh surface. And I'm running along, and I still felt great, and I stopped to look down just to check my feet, and I'm like, yep, cool. Check the other one, yep, and then kept running, and then I took about 10 strides, and I went, actually, there was just some sort of lasting memory that I thought, hang on, maybe that wasn't okay. And I had another look and brushed all the dust off, and what I saw when I brushed the dust off, I saw that there were blood blisters. Actually, I'll just show you across the whole pad of the foot, all the way across that whole area was blood blisters, and every single toe, all 5 toes on both feet, and the entire pads of both feet were completely covered with blood blisters, blood-filled blisters. And so I hobbled back to the office. If you just check out, like, I couldn't walk on the bottoms of my feet. I could only walk on the outside of my feet all the way back to the office. And then once in the office, the blisters were really full of water, and at that point I wasn't sure what to do about them, so I was popping them, because I had a 12-hour track race to do 2 days later. And that wasn't good news that I had such blisters 2 days before that race that I was already entered in and I was really excited about. So I was popping the blisters with a needle and getting the fluid out, but it would just fill up again within 10-15 minutes. It'd be just back to the same problem, and they were burning. They were really traumatic sites, like trauma sites, hot spots on my feet. And yeah, it was terrible, and I couldn't. So I was walking around on the outsides of my feet, and I was starting to get sore legs from this weird posture of turning my knees out to walk on the sides of my feet. And then that night I was reading a book by Dean Karnazes called Ultramarathon Man: Confessions of an All-Night Runner, and he was talking about how he'd gone up this race, the Western States Hundreds, and it starts up a ski slope, and then at the top there's snow at that time of year still. So he was running in just regular trainers and got the worst blisters. And when he got to the next checkpoint, he said, oh, what can you guys do about this? And they said, oh, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. They took his shoes and socks off, and they lanced the blisters with a scalpel from front to back, in the direction of his foot, and then filled it with super glue. Like, so they got the liquid out of the blister, and then put super glue inside the blister, and filled the blister with super glue or crazy glue, and then the blister was sealed shut, and then they just put tape over it, and then said, off you go. And he's like, okay. And then he ran, and he couldn't believe it. It was all held back together because the tough skin outside the blister was stuck back to the delicate, tender stuff underneath that's experiencing all the pain. And the blister can't fill with fluid again, so all that friction doesn't happen anymore. And then it just heals like normal. So I got some surgical glue from my friend who's in the medical circuit, and that they use for, if they don't use stitches on an injury, they just put some glue over it. And I lanced the blister open and filled it with super glue, and turned up at the race, and I showed ultra marathon runners that were there. Like, one guy had run across Australia, for example. Paul Every is an amazing runner, puts on a race called Coast to Cosy every year, which is phenomenal. But he looked at them and said, those are the worst blisters that I've ever seen. And I figure if he's saying that, I mean, they were pretty bad. But I ended up running like, I don't know, like around 50 miles or 55 miles, I think, in that race over 12 hours on the worst blisters ever. So it was pretty amazing to be able to run even with on those blisters. Once I'd filled it with super glue, they didn't get any worse. They still felt like a hot spot to run on, but I wasn't in any pain, and I was able to just pretty much run like normal. So that's today's tip, the worst blisters ever. I don't recommend experiencing that, but if you're ever in that situation, there is the option to go with the super glue if you're really passionate about doing a particular race. So I hope you have a great day. That's all.
Like, subscribe, visit, add, and follow Raw Aussie Athlete.